Colleagues, I welcome you to today's sitting.
On Monday, 23rd January 2023, the Minister of State for Lands, Housing and Urban Development, Honorable Persis Namuganza, was censured.
The matter raised in the interviews was obnoxious, reckless, insufferable, beyond the pale, and in incuriam, it was an attack on the person of the Speaker, the Parliament, without due regard to the rules of procedure, the protected status, the protected redress, the applicability of evidence, and the decorum of Parliament.
And if the clips was to be played, you are going to see it by yourself, the way he belittled, demeaned the integrity of this house.
How can you be asked to come to a committee of Parliament and you say you cannot appear before such a committee? You disregard the committee of Parliament.
Colleagues, we had 356 of you voting. The yes votes were 349. The no votes were 4. Okay? And the abstain votes were 3. Having obtained the numbers required, that is more than half of the members of Parliament, as required under Article 118, Clause 1 of the Constitution, and meeting the threshold provided for under Rule 109, Sub-Rule 12 of our Rules of Procedure, Sub-Rule 13 of our Rules of Procedure, I hereby declare that the motion has been carried, that Honorable Namuganza Persis be censured, and as required under Rule 109, Sub-Rule 13 of our Rules of Procedure, I will inform the President accordingly within 24 hours.
On Tuesday, 24th January 2023, the Ministers for Works and Transport and Internal Affairs were directed to present a joint statement to the House on allegations of extortions at Entebbe International Airport. The directive was given by the Deputy Speaker Thomas Tayebwa.
In the reports which we've seen in the media, they are saying dismissed, dismissed. But these are criminals. These are criminals. You dismiss today, they go and get a job in another place, you know, and they continue with that kind of habit. So I'll need a joint statement from the Minister of Works, who supervises a Civil Aviation Authority, and the Minister for Internal Affairs, because most of the cases were to do with immigration officers.
In the sitting, the Committee on Education was tasked to expeditiously carry out investigations into same-sex vices in schools, following a directive by Speaker Anita Among on Wednesday, 18th January 2023.
Colleagues, I'm getting painful stories. I'm getting grueling stories. The Committee on Education, this is a matter you have to give urgent priority.
Honorable Speaker, if you also direct Minister of Internal Affairs to scrutinize the NGOs. Some NGOs, ever since they came here, they are not monitored on what brought them, how they are performing. They have ended up recruiting our children.
Could UCC be equally brought to the attention of this and control these exposures of our children to pornography and many more of these aspects?
The Ministry of Health was also urged to address the continued drug stockouts faced by health centers countrywide.
My appeal is to the Ministry of Health not to give promises, but to give assurance.
Thank you.
That they are delivering drugs the shortest time possible.
The district chairperson of Kabarole is even threatening to close all health centers because they are operating without drugs. So this is a serious issue which is concerning the entire country, and Minister of Health need to do something.
As Parliament, we really need to work on the health sector to appropriate more funds, especially for medicines, and also to advocate as members of Parliament for primary health care for people.
At the same sitting, a report of the Committee on Physical Infrastructure urged government to prioritize funds meant to pay contractors hired by Uganda National Roads Authority in a bid to avoid financial hemorrhage.
The obligation on to UNRWA by 27th September 22 was 832 billion, out of which local contract certificates and invoices amounted to 115 billions. In order to curb the ongoing hemorrhage of financial resources from government, Ministry of Finance should endeavor to honor its commitments to clear the debts owing to contractors as a first call in the first quarter of the following financial year.
The Museums and Monument Bill 2022, that was returned by the President in November 2022, was reconsidered by the House and passed for the second time since it was first passed on 15th September 2022.
The bill is premised on the principles of protection, preservation of both the culture and natural heritage of Uganda. It is also the observation of the committee that distortion of intangible heritage has commenced with the museum and monuments legislation itself.
Some areas have already been gazetted. So we are going to open a Pandora box where it will be up to the minister to decide which area must be gazetted as a protected site.
We have a cure, because you see, even in the president's letter, he gives us a caution where he says we need wide consultations on the matter. Instead of enacting a law which is explosive and people from the onset are rushing to court, complaining and all that, we've given the minister a window of introducing a schedule and a statutory instrument.
Also in the sitting, the Minister of State for Defense and Veteran Affairs, Honorable Maxon Zoboth, revealed that officers of the Uganda People's Defense Forces, UPDF, that were involved in extortions during the recent recruitment exercise have been apprehended.
They are indisciplined soldiers who purportedly turn themselves into recruitment officers, whereas not, and they extort money from the vulnerable recruits, parents and guardians.
If at all, the recruitment was on quota basis, I see no reason why somebody should come from Arua, Mariokolo, to come to Nebi.
A few isolated cases of extortion were reported and those were investigated and they have been apprehended.
On Wednesday, 25th January 2023, the Deputy Speaker Thomas Tayebwa named the Select Committee that will investigate operations and management of the National Social Security Fund, NSSF. The Deputy Speaker also directed the Internal Affairs and Local Government Ministers to investigate a bylaw passed by the Kasese Municipal Council and present their findings to the House.
I received the news that Kasese Municipal Council, made an attempt to pass a bylaw that recognizes homosexuals and transgender people as minorities. I want to make this very clear to all local governments in the country, that there is no local government that can pass a bylaw that contravenes national laws. You know, this is not a simple fight. It's not for the faint-hearted. They are going to target us.
What is happening is that they are using these NGOs to reach down to the grassroots, promoting health, but at the end of it, they are doing something else.
I want to make it crystal clear that the purported bylaw is not a position of our community.
In the same sitting, the Minister of State for Defense and Veteran Affairs, Honorable Maxon Zoboth, said that the UPDF Operation Shujaa against the rebel Allied Democratic Forces, ADF, in the DRC is on course.
The operation has evolved through phases, renewable after 2 months. In 2022 alone, 424 ADF terrorists were put out of action, 81 others captured, 115 abductees rescued, 118 firearms with assorted ammunition, and 10 EIDs recovered. The joint forces continue to mount pressure against ADF elements in order to decisively neutralize the group.
Also in the sitting, Honorable Muwanga Chivumbi observed that government could lose well up to 8 trillion shillings in tax exemptions, which he said makes no sense in light of budgeting constraints occasioned by pressures on the national resource envelope.
I just sampled a few companies where we have exempted. And then Parliament now takes a critical decision where it is not high time that we comprehensively review the tax exemption. It is high time this Parliament put up a committee of inquiry into tax exemption. We do have the committee we appointed to study the case of Jagari, the tax exemption of Jagari. We shouldn't go into the budgeting process again before that committee reports. I adjourn the House to tomorrow at 2 p.m.